Once you knead the dough again with the hand, you can use a small knife to cut into small balls like this.
Join the movement. Change what you can with the MG ZS EV.
Welcome Chef, welcome Karyna to our Luxbook Top 50 video series. Really excited to have you today. What we are going to do today is that Chef Kushal Lama of Yauatcha Kolkata is going to show us how to make yummy, easy dumplings at home, and Karyna is going to talk to us about all things Pan-Asian cuisine and new trends in food and beverage industry right now.
Yes. Thank you for having us. It's a complete honor.
Awesome. So let's begin. Karyna, to begin with, how has the Pan-Asian and Chinese cuisine evolved over the years in India? And why do a lot of discerning diners like the cuisine or prefer the cuisine?
So honestly, we opened both Hakkasan and Yauatcha 9 years ago now. And at that point, there were, of course, a lot of Asian restaurants in Bombay and in India. And a lesser known fact is actually Chinese is our second most eaten cuisine in India. But at that point, there was no restaurants or very few restaurants just focusing on like a specialized cuisine within Asia. And that's when we came up with Cantonese, obviously. So Hakkasan is a modern Cantonese restaurant. And Yauatcha is a little bit, I would say, even more specialized because it's a dim sum tea house. So really zoning into like one kind of food group within the cuisine. So that was obviously really interesting, and that worked really well for us, which is why we rolled out an expansion plan going to Bangalore and Calcutta, where Chef Kushal is from. He's actually part of our pre-opening team. So he's been with us for a really long time. So it was something that got really accepted. People loved it. And today, when you look at it, the last 3 to 5 years, there's been like a major influx of specialized cuisine, and everyone's gone that route, whether it's Japanese or Thai and many other cuisines. So I think it definitely was something that we did a long time ago, and it's something that people love, right? Right now, it's all just about focusing on quality. It's not about having that big menu anymore. It's just about having those few dishes that people love and keep coming back for.
So today I'm going to make one of our signature dish, a vegetarian signature dish, which is basically pan fried. It is first steamed and then pan fried. So this dish is actually made with major three ingredients. It has carrot, it has water chestnut, and it has celery. I'll take you to the process of making a filling first. Then slowly I move to the making of the skin, and then the whole assembling process will come up, and then the cooking process will come up. So now, as you can see, we have ingredients which are measured. We have celery, we have water chestnut, we have carrot, all cut into small cube size, as you can see. We have some potato starch to bind the filling. We have some seasoning. In Chinese, when we say seasoning, it is the mixture of equal ratio of salt, sugar, and white pepper. And then we have some fresh ginger juice and some sesame oil to give it a flavor.
Okay. And I guess that while chef is making and prepping for his cooking, Karyna, can we continue the discussion with you?
Of course.
So, Karyna, where do you source your ingredients from? And if it comes from abroad, in the lockdown particularly, has it been difficult to get these ingredients?
So to be honest, what we do is it's a complete mix of things. I think over the years when we first opened, we used to import absolutely everything. And over the years, we've really tried to source local ingredients that work for us as well. So there's some things that are like brilliant and they work really well. So for example, we get like lotus root that's local, or we would look at like for Nara, we look at like a lot of our things that we work with, like even like the local ginger, galang, like that all works for us. But there are certain items that we have to import. So we get a lot of our vegetables from Thailand, whether it is the yam or the asparagus, all of that. But we have actually not had much of a challenge during this lockdown to source our things. We have obviously looked at a limited menu, only things that travel well for us, because that's really important, especially when it comes to dim sum. And we've just focused on things that we know we can get easily or we can locally procure. In Calcutta, for example, we do work with a lot of local stuff. So we have local betki on our menu. We've incorporated mustard within some of our dim sum and stuff. So it's just about finding that kind of balance between knowing the ingredients that you will not be able to get here, and then also focusing on some indigenous ingredients that we like to have fun with in the menu.
Okay. So chef, maybe can you tell us that now what kind of magic you are going to do with all the ingredients that you have been sourcing, especially from in and around India these days?
Okay. So right now, I have blanched the vegetable, all the fruits cut vegetables, which is very necessary, Blanching is a process in which we do not entirely cook the vegetable. We just give a shock of hot water to it, just to make it a little bit tender, because we have to keep this thing in mind that the dim sum goes through another process of cooking, the final cooking. So keeping that in mind, we always need to keep our vegetables only 40 to 30% cooked, because if we cook it totally right now, by the time it gets cooked in the final process, it will all just go smashed. So that is how it's very important for us to blanch the vegetable only, not to boil it. So as I mentioned earlier, I'll be using sesame oil to flavor the filling. In a hot wok, I'll use some sesame oil. I'll put the blanched vegetable and then toss it. Once the sesame oil is properly mixed, we'll use some ginger juice. This is not concentrated, it is diluted ginger juice. This ginger juice will help us to enhance the flavor of the filling. And now seasoning. Seasoning quantity is not mentioned because it depends as per the taste. So I'm just adding as what I require. After properly mixing it, we need to add the potato starch.
Chef, so how many people are you making these dumplings for? Sorry. So what is the serving like?
Okay, so this dim sum, I have prepared this recipe for 10 portion. So if you think in a portion, if you are making up to 3 pieces, this will make up to 30 pieces of dim sum.
Okay.
At home, if you prepare, you can also use your gas burner, but we have to make sure that you use the highest flame for it, because the process of cooking need to be done in a very short time. I do understand that at home this sort of commercial industrial gas is not there, but whenever we use something for home purpose, we have to make sure that we use the highest flame.
Okay.
Yeah. Potato starch, we'll add some water for the potato starch to work, the filling to bind properly. So our filling is almost done.
Okay.
So this filling now needs to be kept inside the chiller till it cools down.
Okay. So chef,
And
you can take your time to cool it, and in the meanwhile, I'll go back to Karyna. Karyna, which is your favorite dumpling?
Honestly, like all. But if I have to tell you an interesting story, the reason we actually brought down Yauatcha was because of this one dumpling that my mum, me, and my sister were obsessed with. It's called the Chilean sea bass mulli roll, and it's interesting because it's actually a gluten-free dim sum. So it's a piece of Chilean sea bass which is steamed and really lightly flavored with ginger and garlic, because you don't need much with Chilean sea bass, such a beautiful fish, and it's wrapped around by mulli, and then a chive. It's basically tied out with a chive. And we used to go to the Yauatcha in Soho in London, my mum, my sister, and I, and we used to order literally just like 9 baskets of Chilean sea bass mulli roll and just eat that, and that's it. And it was super light and healthy, and it was really delicious. And so we were obsessed with this dish, and that's one of like the reasons we really loved Yauatcha, and we were very excited to bring it down. What's interesting is that it's actually not at all one of the dishes that sell a lot in Yauatcha, and the highest selling dish for us is something that we created internally that was never on the Yauatcha menu, which is so celebrated now all over all the Asian restaurants in Bombay and India, and they've taken it in London as well. And it's the Edamame truffle dumpling. So not a lot of people know it's actually created by us. Fun fact, actually created by my mom and Chef Soon, who was our executive chef at that time. And that is the highest selling dim sum throughout all our restaurants. So it's just interesting to see how, there's a lot of creativity, a lot of creative freedom within our restaurants. Some things that you feel will do really well, sometimes don't. Something really unexpected that you've just created out of whatever it is ends up being your highest selling dishes. So my favorite is Chilean sea bass mulli roll. People's favorite is edamame truffle. Also the crispy turnip cakes. That's also interesting because in London, it's basically not fried, it's pan fried, and they put a lot of like fish in it, like prawn, like basically dried shrimp. And we had to come up with a vegetarian version, and we were like, how do we get that same umami-ness within a vegetarian version? So we decided to fry it. It is deep fried, and then we basically top it up with lots of like fried ginger and scallions, and it's really Moorish, and it works really well. Also, the crispy prawn chung fan is always a signature. And I don't know, I actually, for some reason, we also have this dim sum, which is the prawn and water chestnut roll, which is again wrapped in spinach, and it's with this like black bean sauce. It's delicious, and it's again gluten-free, which is really nice. So I had lots of variations. I feel that's what's fun about dim sum, is like no dim sum is kind of similar to each other. There's so much you can play around with.
So, do people in India prefer vegetarian dim sum?
Yeah, I mean, all our restaurants, there's definitely vegetarian will always be a higher component. I think very interestingly, actually, Bangalore and Calcutta, I do see a lot more people eating meat or fish. Obviously, in Calcutta, it's huge, but also like pork. Our pork ribs do really well there, or pork belly. In Bangalore, tenderloin does really well. Bombay generally is more vegetarian centric.
That's interesting to know. And I'm sure that what Chef is showing is going to please all the Bombay audiences and viewers. So, Chef, are you ready? Should we see the next step for cooking
Yes.
dim sum?
Yes. So the next step, I would show you how to prepare the skin for the wrapping. We'll use maida or the regular flour, which is available in market. We'll use some water in it. We'll use salt to season it, which is again optional. And we'll use some vegetable oil, sunflower oil, any oil will do, just to make it little bit moist, and which will help it not to dry in a time. So again, the ratio of flour and water that we use basically is 1:1 ratio. But sometimes what happens, it depends upon different flour. Different brands of flour have different sort of gluten present in it, which makes it, some of them require more water and some of them require less water. So in this, I have used a recipe of 300 grams of flour with 140 grams of water, which can go plus and minus. So we have to make sure it's a judgmental thing to make the dough. So we will be using a small sort of hand electrical mixer to make the dough. We'll add the flour first. We'll add the salt. And then we'll first mix it, the dry ingredients. After the dry ingredients get mixed, we can pour the water in a batch of 2 or 3. We'll make sure that we do not pour the entire water at one time. As I mentioned earlier, that your dough might get too much of water, like it might get too soft, and it will be very hard to heat a skin out of it and to get a proper shape. So we always have to make sure that you add the water in 2 or 3 batches.
Can this also be made, can you even knead the dough with hands, or do you need
Yes.
a machine?
We can do with hands also, but it is again a time consuming thing. But nowadays, a lot of people it's very easily available, these sort of small mixers and blenders which is available in market. Yes, earlier days when these utensils and equipment were not available, people were used to do with hands itself. And being in a commercial kitchen, yes, we have a lot of batches to make, and it is not convenient and easy for us to make so much of dough with our hands.
So while this is made, Karyna, back to you. So in the lockdown, how did you ensure, like after home delivery started, how did you ensure that you all sort of delivered dim sum hot and fresh to people's houses? Was that a challenge?
So to be honest, we always had a policy not to deliver dim sum, and we didn't do delivery, especially in Nara, of course. Thai food travels very well. But with Hakkasan Yauatcha, we never did any deliveries. It was against our policy. So we got thrown into the situation where we just had to do deliveries, and we really had to figure it out. We spent enough time. We were definitely not one of the first people to start deliveries, and we started off really towards the end of April, so good 1.5 months after, and we really used that time in terms of experimenting and seeing what travels well, what doesn't travel well, how to package it, and we managed to achieve that. And we also had to take certain decisions, like for example, I know that a crispy prawn chung fam would be one of the highest selling things dim sum. Till date, we get calls about it and say that, we don't care if it's not as good, please just send it. But we took a firm call. We said, no, we can't deliver it because it will not last the way we want it to. Because it's a very delicate dim sum. Stuff like the Shanghai dumpling that he's making right now, or a hargao, which are also our signatures, did travel really well. And we did that test multiple times. We got certain containers that worked well for us. We put together that packaging in place. We, looked at our sauces and said, okay, now if I am delivering it, how can I basically let you have that sauce for a longer period of time? So we worked on our sauces, and now they have a shelf life around 30 days if you keep it in the fridge, which also all our guests love. So a lot of trial and error. The wok dishes, pretty much most of them travel well, so that's fine. But we had to do a lot of kind of training also for the dim sum to make sure that it comes to you the way we would want it to, basically. We also focused on doing different things. So I think we looked at how can we make it exciting. So for us, it's always important to deliver an experience, no matter what we're doing it, whether it's in your house or over here. So we looked at different ideas in terms of what can we do to still keep it exciting for you. And that's when we came up with the rainbow dim sum basket, and wanted to add a charity element to it. So we tied up with Nargis Dutt Foundation and focused on, kids who had cancer and just wanted to give back. And it's just this beautiful rainbow dim sum basket with all the colors of the rainbow. And we looked at, so we never use any coloring or any sort of that stuff in our food. So we looked at different colors from beetroot and carrot and celery, and came up with really vibrant colored dim sum baskets, a veg and a meat and seafood one, and stuff like that kept it exciting. We actually sent it over to people's houses in the basket. So when they got the basket, they could steam it and enjoy it, and then they keep the basket, which is just really interesting. So like now, for example, if they're trying a dim sum at home, they have a Yauatcha basket with them. Also helps with guest recall and adding to the experience. So we just kind of played around with stuff like that.
Nice. So, chef, what colors dim sum are you making us today?
Today, I'm not using any additional sort of color for this dim sum. This would be a normal, the natural color of the skin. It will come off-white. So after making the skin, we have to store it inside the chiller for almost 45 minutes for the gluten to settle down. And after the dough, which I have already prepared earlier the time ahead, and the dough will come up like this. Now the dough is more smooth after being settled for 45 minutes inside the chiller. It is the perfect time to knead it and to roll it out into small plates. Now our filling, as you can see, this filling has also cooled down, and
Nice. Chef, what is the trickiest part about making a dim sum? What are the areas where you have to be very careful, especially while making them at home?
okay. So while making at home, as I mentioned earlier, that while making vegetarian dim sums, it is always very important to make sure that your filling ingredients are not entirely cooked, because it has to go through a final process of cooking. Dim sum productions always happens in batch productions. You cannot do one portions and the other portions after some time. It has to be made in batch, and it cannot be frozen. A lot of people have this sort of perception that they can freeze dim sums, but no, it will totally kill your dim sum. It will totally kill the texture and the feeling, and you won't be able to enjoy the entire, all the effort you had put into it. So after the filling, the skin is also very important, as I mentioned. It cannot be too soft. It cannot be too hard. Uh, Safe is something which depends on each and every person on their skills, which actually doesn't matter. But what matters is the taste, what flavor you get, and what is the texture of the food. So these three things are very important. So before making dim sum, these three things are the most essential part you must look out.
Karyna, can you make dim sum?
So when I joined the company, I did an internship actually,
Okay.
and I was in the kitchen for around, I think, like a week almost, and that's when I learned how to make it. It is definitely like, so the way we talk about is we talk about the art of dim sum in Yauatcha. It's so intricate. It's really just really beautiful. The amount of folds that it takes to make one dim sum. There are people who just spend years learning the art, and I think, honestly, with no bias, our team in India is so good at it. Like they have just like, we have people who've been with us, like of course Kushal, but also like people in his team and people in Bombay who've been with us for years, who have learned the art of making dim sum so well that we're actually in conversation right now with Hakkasan Group to like set up a India chef training academy, where what they want to do is they want to send chefs from all over the world, from like, either it's like now they're focusing on opening restaurants in Mexico or their London restaurants. So they actually want to send them to India and, set up a training academy over here where they can learn from our chefs.
Wow, that's impressive.
Very brilliant. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. The team has picked it up really, really well. But it's difficult, yeah.
So honored the chef is showing us how to make these. Chef, over to you. Can you please show us how is it done exactly? And maybe we could probably not get it perfect like Karyna said, but we could at least try.
Okay. So once you knead the dough again with the hand, you can use a small knife to cut into small balls like this, maybe approximately 8 grams to 12 grams, which is quite sufficient for a bite-sized dim sum. And after doing this, we might be using some extra flour while rolling it out. We use a special wooden made roller which can be used with one hand while rolling. But at home, people can use their regular roller which they use to make rotis and all chapatis. It can be also used for by those rollers by using this, but we use it for a faster process. We use it one hand method where we use one hand to move the dough slightly and the other to roll. I'll show you. This is how it is done. We have this. We roll it, we turn it. We roll it, we turn it. We roll it, we turn it. So it is a very fast process in which it comes into this state. I'll show you another one. We roll it, we turn it. We roll it, we turn it. So this is how we need to do. And of course, people at home uh, wouldn't be much comfortable with this process, but they can use the two-hand rolling method also, which will take a little more time, but that would be totally justified if they are preparing for their couple of guests and maybe for the family members.
I did. Chef, are you going to now put in the fillings and
Yes.
show us how to fold it?
Yes, I'll show you that.
Karyna, can you make like perfect dumplings?
I wish. I'll learn one day though.
So
Yes,
we have
chef.
the filling, we have the skin. We'll use a small spoon like this or any spoon at home. We'll make sure that we put the filling in the center and not make sure that it doesn't touch the edges. Why I'm saying so? Because we require the edges to be dry and free of these fillings because we need to heat it and give a shape. So again, this is what we have.
Oh wow, this is really an art.
So now, yes, so as I mentioned earlier, the shape of the dumpling is entirely dependent upon the person's skills. That is why I have said we should always make sure that we first correct our filling, skin, and the texture. We always make sure that these three things are perfect, and the shape can come later on as people keep on training and working on it.
Chef, for how long have you been making dim sum?
Okay, so I have been making dim sums more than 12 years now, and I'm very happy that I have been working in Yauatcha for such a long time and have got so much of exposure here and been also able to show up my skills. And it's a great platform for me, I would say, and it's a great platform for the other chefs also who definitely like to give their best and to show their skills. Yes, earlier, before Yauatcha in India, there was no certain restaurants who was so concentrate on a Cantonese food in a dim sums. There was always a sort of small menu or mixture of basic sort of dim sums. But when Yauatcha came up to India, like it has a massive menu, more than like 50 to 60 varieties of dim sums. And as it was one of the first restaurant in India which were doing so much of dim sums and specialized in Cantonese cuisine. So now what we have to do is we need to take this first and steam it. We'll put on the steamer. We do not require to cook the dim sum as soon as it is made, because as I mentioned earlier that it needs to be done the production in batch. Obviously, you are planning for something. You have guests at your home. You have your family members. You're planning for dinners. So this can be done prior to 1 hour, 2 hours. You can make your dumplings and store it in your chiller. And when the correct time comes to serve, like 5 minutes or 6 minutes, then you can steam it and then serve it.
Karyna, how long does it usually take for dim sums from the time a guest places his or her order to deliver it, and how do you make sure that it's as quick as possible and as fresh as possible when it reaches a guest now house, obviously, that we discussed, but his or her table?
So usually dim sum would go anywhere between 5 minutes is the fastest it can come out, to all the way up to 12 minutes, which would be a chung fan, which would take longer because obviously there's a two-step process to that. So honestly, what we do is that, as chef mentioned, is that we prep the dim sum the day off in the morning. The team comes in very early, around 8 a.m. and preps all the dim sum, and then they stock it in the in the fridges. And then as soon as the KOT comes, all we have to do is steam it. Steaming, literally, because they're fresh, they're not frozen. They take just 2 to 3 minutes to be steamed or pan fried, or in Chung Fan's case, steamed and then kind of fried and then rolled and cut and served. So generally, it does not take that long because a lot of the pre-prep is done. When it comes to delivery, obviously, however long it takes for the food to get delivered, but in general, dim sum is a very quick meal. If you go back to the roots of like Hong Kong chatter houses, like tea houses, that's the idea, right? Just to have like lots of dim sum with your tea. It's a quick meal in and out. So in general, it's quite quick.
Okay, chef, is it steamed and ready?
So it is almost ready. So in between, when it is ready, I will show you how to make the sauce that we serve along with this vegetable Shanghai dumpling. So this is basically a combination of ginger and a black vinegar. It's called Chinkang vinegar. So it's much more similar to the balsamic vinegar that you get in market. So you'll see. So we have some Chinkang vinegar. It's fermented rice vinegar. We have some shredded ginger, which is soaked in water.
Is the vinegar easily available in the market?
If not, you can also use a normal rice vinegar also.
Okay.
So the difference between a normal vinegar and the Chinkang vinegar is like the Chinkang vinegar is sort of more fermented. It has a more robust aroma and flavor, but not that sour compared to the white vinegar. So what we generally use, we'll take some ginger, we place it on the bowl. And we take some black vinegar and top it up. Our sauce is ready.
Oh, that's simple.
It's simple. Take you to our dim sum. It is almost ready. As you can see, our dim sum is ready.
Ooh.
It's almost cooked. Show you from here.
Nice.
So now it needs to be pan fried.
Okay.
So we have a non-stick pan over here. We'll use some oil.
Is this supposed to be cooked again on high steam?
Yes, we are doing the final process of cooking, which is called pan fry, to give a brown texture to the layer below the dim sum. As again, when you see, there are two textures which will be there in the dim sums. Like the upper layer is very soft after getting steamed, and again, if you bite the layer which is below, which has become crispy and more brown due to the pan fry process. So there are a lot of things which is going inside when you take a bite. There is some soft, there is some crunchy, then again there is a flavors of 3 vegetables coming up together as you bite into it. There is a celery coming, carrot, and water chestnut.
Wow, this looks delicious. Karyna, I wish we could have a system where we could actually virtually experience and taste food as well.
100%, I wish to.
Also, Karyna, now that we are almost at the end of our discussion, So coming back to sort of today and the COVID situation, something that we cannot escape. How are things now for the F&B industry, and what kind of more innovations, ingredients, and home delivery foods are you all planning?
So a bunch of things actually. We have so what we normally do is every year we have a patisserie collaboration that we do with Yauatcha. Last year we did it with Manish Malhotra. We wanted to kind of continue the tradition even this year, and it starts off basically in Diwali and goes up to Valentine's Day. So it's a season for gifting, for celebrations. It's been a really weird year, but we didn't want to kind of get rid of that tradition. We still wanted to do it. So our focus is, so we are collaborating with someone as well this year, and we're working on really beautiful packaging and all. We don't want to lose the idea of celebration. It's our festivals and Christmas and New Year, everything should still be celebrated, maybe in a much smaller way, but we want to find basically the joy in smaller things. And so we're going to continue with that. We also have Chinese New Year coming up, so we're focusing on that. That's the time where we really kind of go a little bit into like the traditions of China and then pull out like what we think works and modernize it. We've always done that. That's always been our ethos at Yauatcha. So whether it was the scallop shumai that we first came up with, or looked at a traditional dim sum like hargao and made it spicy and topped it up with caviar, always looking at traditional recipes and then how we can modernize it. For Calcutta, we're doing something interesting with Durga Puja coming up. We always look at local ingredients over there. So whether it's a steamed betki fish as a main course, or incorporating mustard within our dumplings, or even the hibiscus flower, which is quite auspicious during that time. So looking at working with different seasonal ingredients as well. And also just doing like fun different things. So whether it was like the rainbow dim sum basket where we delivered an experience to your house, or once we do start operations and once we're allowed to go to people's homes, we want to focus on at-home experiences, whether it's doing yamcha, which is like a dim sum tea, a kind of high tea at people's homes with like limited amount of people, or even this weekend we actually went to Alibag. So it's just such different things. I think we've really, like, this time has really made us think out of the box and think of anything and everything that kind of, makes sense and that we can give back to our guests with. Our guests have always supported us, and I think during this time we want to just do anything and everything that we can to give back.
And on that note, I think I would love to see the plated dish. Chef, can you please show that to us?
We have the perfectly pan-fried veg Shanghai dumpling. As you can see, served with the black vinegar and ginger sauce.
This looks perfect, Chef, and I wish I could jump out of the screen and have some. But as Karyna had earlier said, that whenever you guys start your home experience delivery and service, I am definitely going to call and request for awesome dim sums and have somebody from your team come and create the entire experience for us over here at Luxbook. Thank you so much, Chef, for your time. Karyna, any parting notes?
Just that I think it's been a crazy year for everyone, and I think we're all just starting to, as I mentioned, think of other crazier things maybe on what to do and keep it exciting. But yeah, it's been a challenge. We've learned a lot from this year. We've learned to be very self-sufficient, which is, I think, something great that's come out of this year. And yeah, looking forward to actually having everyone back at our restaurant soon.
Thank you, and we would also love to come back.
And Bangalore have fortunately started. But yeah,
awesome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for doing this for us. Thank you, Chef. Thank you, Karyna. Thank you so much.